From the Magruder Wilderness Corridor on August 18, 2009, I had the opportunity to hike to the spot that is claimed to be the site of the massacre of Lloyd Magruder, Jr., and several others of his companions. I document this here. A previous attempt to find the site in 2007 failed. By virtue of Lloyd Jr.'s gruesome and sensational murder in 1863, while returning from a successful provisioning expedition to the gold strikes deep in the Washington Territory, now Montana, he entered history and became the subject of many books and articles. At 20, Lloyd left Maryland for the frontiers of Arkansas, where his brother had married and settled in Batesville. But Lloyd seems to have been restless for a new way of life. He learned surveying and studied the law. He was a soldier in the Mexican War. The siren song of the gold rush sent Lloyd off to seek his fortune in California in 1849. After unsuccessfully trying his hand at panning for gold, he sent for Caroline, his wife, and their firstborn child, Sally, and settled in Marysville, where Lloyd made and lost several fortunes, and the family grew with 2 boys and another girl. He had a store, it burned down, published a newspaper, practiced law, was Yuba County Marshal, Clerk of Yuba County, Justice of the Peace, and was nominated and elected to the State Assembly in Sacramento, where he was an active member, frequently introducing bills and resolutions and participating in debates. That said, Lloyd was a likable guy, well-educated, well-spoken. According to one writer, open quote, a man of unimpeachable reputation and a packer of intrepidity, close quote. Having learned how to handle mules in the Army, he was able to organize pack trains of up to 75 mules and horses to transport goods to gold miners as new strikes established makeshift communities in the wilderness. He was credited as the first trail maker into many famous mining regions of the Northwest. In the summer of 1863, his future bride, nominated as an independent Democrat, back then Republicans were the liberals, to run for Congress. Lloyd took a large pack train laden with merchandise to Virginia City and Bannock, in now Montana, crossing the Bitterroot Mountains along the South Nez Perce Trail. Having sold his goods, Lloyd prepared to head back to Lewiston with 1,500 ounces of gold dust and more than $2,000 in Union greenbacks, a small fortune of $30,000. He traveled with 4 trustworthy companions. In Bannock, he hired 4 men who were recommended by Henry Plummer, who turned out to be cutthroats. They were hired at Skinner's Saloon, which was Sheriff Plummer's headquarters. They hatched a plan to kill Magruder and his party and make off with the money. Plummer was elected sheriff of Bannock, Montana from 1863 to 1864, during which period he was accused of being the leader of a road agent gang of outlaws known as the Innocents, which preyed on shipments from Virginia City to other areas. Just as a side note, in response, some leaders in Virginia City formed a vigilante committee of Alder Gulch and began to take action against Plummer's gang. Gaining confessions from a couple of men, they arrested in early January 1864. On January 10, 1864, Plummer and 2 associates were arrested in Bannock by a company of the vigilantes and summarily hanged. At 10 o'clock on Sunday night, October 11, 1863, as Lloyd lit his pipe while on watch, one of the killers cleaved Lloyd's skull from behind with an axe. 4 others were attacked and killed in their sleep. The bodies were rolled off a cliff into a deep canyon, along with the camp equipment. Some of the evidence was burned in a campfire. All the animals, save 8 horses, were led to the canyon and shot. And I've read where he had up to 100 mules on that pack trip. Snow soon fell in the mountains, covering the evidence and leaving the carnage for the wolves. The killers made it to San Francisco, where they were caught, thanks to Lloyd's good friend Hill Beachy. Legend has it Beachy dreamed of Lloyd's death when he was late to return from the trip. Beachy noticed a suspicious foursome attempting a sloppy getaway by stagecoach from Lewiston and convinced authorities throughout California and Washington Territory to assist in their capture and return them to Lewiston for trial. History was made because the trial was the first effort at formal court proceedings in the new Idaho Territory, sparing the killers from vigilante justice, but condemning them to hang. The Idaho Territory was formed in March of 1863, a few months before the murder. For a good read about Hill Beachy and his devoted work to bring Magruder's murderers to justice, read the book This Bloody Deed, The Magruder Incident by Ladd Hamilton. I will let my audio on the video I took of the site and the hike to the site speak for itself from here. Well, I finally found the Nez Perce Trail that Magruder went on. I'm headed up to the Massacre site if I'm lucky today. This little ridge, get on the razor part of the ridge. You see over there, you can see trails coming down. That's from the other side, from the northeast, and they come down across the Selway River, and the trail comes up to this ridge, but there ain't no trail to the ridge, and there ain't no trail on the ridge. That's where they were, according to my GPS. Jenny is sitting down the camper, down close to where you can see that beach down there, at Beaver Point. And that's the Paradise Road. It's a Magruder corridor, but it's a Paradise Road, 12 miles up this canyon. This canyon right here to Paradise. Right, is that canyon over there? Yeah, yes it is, the Paradise. So I'm close to heaven, or Paradise. 2 different places, right? So, we are going to go on up the Nez Perce Trail. That's the old Nez Perce Trail. Over the top of the ridge. Every once in a while you get a glimpse of the trail. See it going up through there. It follows the ridge. This is where the trail was going. Where they say it was about a quarter of a mile or so, it looked like. I thought that was interesting. The trail's right there. Washed out right there a little bit, but it's right, it goes right by this tree. But this is a classic Indian tree. Within a fire fairly recently. There's no question about that being an Indian tree. And you can tell from that maybe when there's a lot of snow on the ground. You go that far from the bottom. And then the trail down here, it mostly follows the ridge, but sometimes off to the side. It's going off to the side here to miss that knoll. We're on that rock pile. Victory. Lloyd Magruder, a merchant from Lewiston, Idaho, and 4 packers, Charlie Allen,
Horace Chalmers, William Phillips, and Robert Chalmers were murdered and robbed of their gold while camped at this location on October 11th, 1863. Magruder hauled supplies to the miners in Virginia City, Montana, and sold them, and was returning to Lewiston when massacred. Doc Howard, Bill Lowry, and Jim Romina were convicted of the murders a short time later and hanged in Lewiston. The original sign posted at this site when the bodies were recovered in the spring of 1864 is now in a Lewiston museum. I'm sure that tree was a witness to the dastardly deed, as well as maybe this one. The trail goes on up there. And it ain't an easy trail if it's anything like what I just climbed up. Some kind of a marker. Justice for Idaho. IS 54, IS 22:23, IS 97. There's where I came. That's a mess, man. The trail down over there in the trees down that way, and then I took this ridge. And it's probably the trail is 10th there. This is the first area that I've seen where there's much grass coming up from Selway. Would be grass here for the mules to graze in. Probably one reason they camped here. Makes you wonder if the rocks that they talked about they're sitting on when they were murdered are these rocks.